What is going on, YouTube? This is The Last Musketeer, and welcome to part 2 of the Blue Archive free-to-play Is It Worth It series. So right away I'm going to get into it and talk about what I started with and what I ended with. Now there's a lot more than I think I could have done over this amount of time, but there was a lot of farming that I did overall near the end of it that used up all the energy I had reserved. And I didn't necessarily want to use any gems to go ahead and replenish energy. I feel like that would be a bad thing for a free-to-play player, so I decided not to do that. So I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to. I wanted to at least hit level 30, though I did hit level 28 by the end of this, which is nice. But we're starting out with a 10 summon, and I know this is not the best option to do. I recommend anyone, especially a free-to-play player, to save as much as you can and pull on the banners that are going to give you the strongest units, because overall that's the best way to get ahead early. But me being the greedy person that I am, I decided to go ahead and pull every time I got a chance to do a 10 pull. So you're going to see quite a few pulls throughout here. Unfortunately, haven't got any of the limited banners yet, but I'm trying to hope that I get lucky enough to pull one of them while it happens, instead of trying to get to the 200, because at that point I'm going to have to save up for quite some time before I can actually do that. But I do get a new 3-star with this pull, one that I haven't used very often, though I will check them out and see what they're capable of later on. At the moment, and there's a lot of them that I haven't tested, a lot of the lower rarity units that I haven't tested as well, because I do have a fairly strong team starting out, making things a little bit easier on myself. The main thing is that I struggled with for a little while was figuring out that whenever you're clicking on a mission, before you actually go into it, there is actually a box on the top left corner of it that says enemies. You click that and it'll show you what you're going to face in the actual stage. So now you can go in and actually plan ahead before you go in there, instead of just throwing random units in like I did. I can say at the moment that I haven't had necessarily any use for someone like Chisei, the blue, the special, because realistically most of the stuff that I've ran into has been red or yellow enemies, and I have counters for those. Most of the stuff that I'm run, it's going to be the same lineup. I will have hybrid matches here and there, but there are some that are just solo red or solo yellow, and in that point you have to bring the proper counters and make sure that the terrain is not going to be a problem as well. So it throws a lot of different strats at you, makes you build your lineup more expansive than just a few here or there, maybe 4 for one specific part, 4 for another. Instead of doing that, you're going to have to work on getting all of them kind of matching terrain so that they get the biggest boost in damage there, and then also having the proper armor counters. Now, it may seem like a bunch of stuff that you have to remember, but realistically it doesn't take that long to actually figure it out and memorize it. So it gets a lot easier as time goes on for sure, but it's an aspect of the game that I do really enjoy, because instead of it being just grab a meta unit and just mindlessly farm away, you now have to make sure that you're using that unit in the proper ways, instead of just throwing them into every match and just bulldozing everything. But we finally get this stage done, and I'm going to try to show mainly just boss stages. I don't want to go too in-depth and too long with all of these clips for the video, because it just, I ended up with almost 4 hours of content to go through, and managed to cut it down into a 30-minute video, which I think is pretty decent. But hopefully it's not too long, hopefully it doesn't drag out too much. One thing I will say though, I do like the phase aspect of this, where the challenges aren't just surviving, there's also completing it in a certain amount of turns, so it's kind of based on you walking around, doing the correct rotation, kind of figuring out a puzzle, I guess, in a way, later on, so that you don't run out of time to be able to get the 3-star rating for it. There's a lot of things they throw in this game that I think is really good. Obviously, the animation for this game is fantastic. I think they did an excellent job of making everything feel really smooth, and though I don't know if I have any clips in here or if I cut them out or not, I did try to change some of the settings at one point, and it then caused all the cars on the stage to glow white, and you literally couldn't see anything through it. It was very annoying. I changed it back and it fixed it, so if you ever have that problem, you probably changed something in settings that messed with it. But as you can see here, I did all of hard mode on chapter 1 at this point. I was only level 8 Sensei level, so I really wasn't that far in, but now I could sweep a couple of these. The third stage I really should have done full completion on a little bit earlier, because apparently that unit is pretty good, so I will make an emphasis to go back and do that, which I did later on, but I could have gotten a couple extra days of farming materials for it. But I go into the guide missions and get a ton of rewards. This is actually a fantastic way to introduce players to the game, because you get so much out of it. Not to mention you get 80 of the Enigma tokens to unlock the character. I think her name is Nanami, if I remember correctly. She's actually a really good yellow-based unit that is very, very strong for wave clearing. But I also unlocked the cafe, which is a good way to not only raise relationships with some of the characters, but also earn some energy and stuff over time, which is a really good way of upkeeping all of your stuff that you need in the game. There's also the story missions that help to unlock the regular stage missions, so you'll have to do these. They have a lot of story behind them. Some of them have combat as well, so you can get through them pretty quickly, but they give you a lot of details on what's actually going on in the story. There is a ton of story at that, I will say. They've done a fantastic job at writing these and making each thing seem individual and unique, because when it comes to the actual characters and leveling them up, when you get the relationship level up, you unlock different stories with them. It also gives you some of the gems, so you're getting a lot out of it. Not to mention that when you get them to level 10, or at least for the one that I've done so far, being Hina, because she is my favorite character in this game, she actually unlocked the recollection thing, where it's the moving background, and it's got some really cool music behind it. But I will warn you, they are a bit risque. They do have some really cool art, but it's a bit out there for sure. But I do another 10 pull here, and I get another 3-star, and I get Hofumi, the swimsuit version. I didn't realize the limited swimsuit versions were in the actual regular pull. Maybe they get in after a certain amount of time. But this character is actually really, really cool. She costs a full 10 to use her ability, but she's a special that uses a tank. So you'll throw her in, the tank rolls around, does a ton of damage when she's attacking yellow units. So a really, really good way of doing a lot of wave clear and doing a lot of damage individually as well. And it lasts for quite some time as well. So it is very costly, yes. There may be better alternatives for sure, but at least for the moment, I do enjoy using that character. Now, this is actually the event that was going on when I first started the game. I didn't get much time to actually do it, but I will show you some of the stages and some of the rewards that you actually get from it, because I think if most of the events are based on this, there are pretty good rewards. I know the next one that I'm doing, the one that's currently running, is actually really good rewards as well, and it seems to be the same kind. So you're going to have plenty of options of getting not just Enigma for certain characters, but you're also getting a lot of upgrade resources, skill stat upgrade resources, and maybe crafting supplies and stuff like that as well. I'm not exactly sure. I hadn't full deep dived into what is actually shown, but I will show you a little bit of it here as I do some pulls. And I do a little bit more farming in the next event, as I'm able to do basically all of the first 10 stages pretty easily, because I'm up to the level where I can actually do that. But as you can see here, there's some Enigma going. You pull it once, you get 20 out of it, and you also have a way to reset, I guess, the banner to be able to pull things again. So if you do a lot of farming on this, I would say you're going to have a lot of resources moving forward. Now, I don't know how good the refresh is, because it says round 1, and I don't know how many rounds there are, but either way, you can get a ton out of it, and plus being able to pull that hero out of it, Enigma's not that easy to come by. You're going to have to do either pulls for it or certain events that are going to reward you with certain specific ones. Also, farming hard mode for specific characters is a good idea as well, because getting the star rating up is your biggest bet for getting them to their max. I will also mention that the relationship part of it, when you get them each level up, it seems to upgrade a certain stat. I don't know if it's always attack. It was for Hina. I got her up over, I think, 126 attack by getting her to 10, which is insane. That is a big increase, especially early game. But as you can see here, I unlocked the lesson tab, where you can actually go in and upgrade the relationship rank of some of the characters. So they'll be in a certain room, they change all the time, I guess probably daily, and depending on the rank of whatever location you're using, so the more you use it, the more it ranks up, they're going to have more options for getting certain characters with a relationship up. As you see right there, I do one, and I get +3 attack to that character, but I haven't really used that character at all. I don't really know if it's any good or not. I'm just kind of biding my time, holding my resources, getting certain ones that I know are pretty decent leveled up. So I did complete all of Chapter 2. The problem is, at this point I was having a hard time because I didn't realize about the enemy thing where I could actually see it beforehand. So my lineup was not very good. It was not very balanced to what it should be. So I kept losing one hero by the end of the mission, and so it gave me a 2-star. So basically I cleared all of Chapter 2 with basically 2 stars on each stage rating. So I went back later on, made sure that I 3-starred each of the stages so I could get the nice amount of primo gems that you get from the full completion of that chapter. But going into this is actually the bounty run. So there's 3 different types of stages, and they seemed all to be based around the skill level ups. So basically your characters will have certain abilities that you'll level up with these materials, giving you extra damage, extra buffs, whatever it may be, as part of their kit. So they're very crucial to getting a character to a high rank and a high damage capability. So a funny thing about these runs was actually that these like sushi based characters, the bosses, were basically the equivalent of the Power Rangers. So it was kind of a fun little cameo that they threw in there. I have to say I really did enjoy seeing that. Now at this point I was starting to unlock some of the new gear for the characters because I got them to level 15, and at level 15 I can start to add their second item. And so this one being a headband, which you can level up just like you do the first one, and gives you extra stats, this one being HP compared to the first one being attack. Now, to go from here, since they are maxed out, what I have to do now is I have to farm Stage 4 missions, Stage 5 missions for different upgrades to the ball cap or the headband. Now, it's different for each character. Not all of them are going to have the same one. Some will have the same, some won't. But this is actually one of the first stages that I show the tank, and I do use it in a terrible situations because all of the enemies are red. So they're going to be basically weak to the enemies. It's not really going to show the pure damage output of the tank. Maybe you can see it on that one yellow enemy if it had stayed, but unfortunately it had timed out by that point. And I do apologize because it's something that you're probably going to have to see quite often because I didn't realize about the whole enemy thing. Of course, as I've said before, and just learning the aspects of the game took me a little bit to actually fully on discover. So it'll get better with time. Once we get later in the video, you'll start to see that I'm actually paying a little bit of attention to what I'm doing. But we do another 10 pull here on the same banner that I started on, and by the end of it I had 80 recruitment points. Now I'm still 120 short of the guarantee for whatever the featured hero is, so in hindsight, obviously you should save, but for me, for doing this series, I really just want to pull as much as I possibly can, because I think it's always a good way to showcase, you know, every hero compared to just saving for one specific OP unit. Just being able to get in and get as much as I can and kind of show them off, show where their shortcomings are, where they might be good at, if they have any niche uses, whatever it may be. So we're heading into another new mode I unlocked, and I want you to pay attention to the fact that I press auto here to see what it recommends, and it gives me all yellow units, right? I go ahead and swap out for a bunch of red units, and it turns out that the stage is actually full of yellow units, so having a full yellow team would have been 100 times better, even if some of them were a little lower rarity. Always, I guess, trust in the auto system a little more than I did, at least early on. But luckily, of course, they were low level, it was still easy to take out, and I did have some options as far as yellow units, so it wasn't too bad in the end, but I could have probably done it a little bit faster if I had been a little smarter with how I chose. Alright, so we have made it to the new banners, and the reason I'm pulling on the Hina one is because Hina is my favorite character. Yeah, it's this swimsuit version, but it's mainly because I want to collect certain ones. So I go ahead and do a 10 pull on this one, my first one. Get 3 of the 2 stars, which is good, but no 3 stars, unfortunately. Luckily, though, there was 2 new of the 2 stars, which makes it a little bit better for me in the end. But I also need a lot more Eligma because at the time I'm getting pretty close to being able to 4-star Hina, so the more I can get of that, the better. So this is the last stage of Chapter 3, and I'm doing a decent amount of improvement. As you can see, I'm not really taking all that much damage. I do still have a bit of a hard time figuring out where at this point I'm supposed to use certain units, so when it comes to it I do have some bad options out, but I did actually throw in a healer, so now that I have a healer it's a little bit easier for me to sustain long enough in these maps to be able to clear them without losing my star rating. The main problem now is just figuring out how to do enough damage in time so that I don't miss out on the time of that. But I nearly completed all the Chapter 3 missions with 3 stars. There was only one of them that I didn't get to 3 stars. But when it comes to how I did compared to Chapter 2 to Chapter 3, I think I've made a lot of improvement, maybe with my decision making, or more so with the units being decently strong for this. But as you can see here, I rank the cafe up to rank 2, which is going to give me some better options, better rewards, and I also unlock Total Assault. So this is basically the raid mode of the game. And this one I don't know, I'm not going to try to say the name because I don't want to butcher it, but I think these are fairly simple, fairly straightforward, at least early on. It's got some cool mechanics with the lanterns that I will discuss in a little bit here, but this is my first attempt, of which I did not do a good job. I will say I did not notice the mechanics enough. I should have paid a little bit more attention to how I did it, but I had a decent lineup for this, so I went ahead and threw a couple things in to change out, which was bad. Putting in a blue unit and a yellow unit did absolutely nothing for me here. I should have kept the other 2 red units, but I did do some pretty decent damage even with not the best lineup here. But as you can see, the green lantern on the top side there, you can use a heal next to it, or maybe it's a solo heal, and it will raise it up some, and then it starts to shoot at the boss as well. So it's extra damage for that, which is really, really cool. But also, just the overall mechanics of the boss, the way it looks, the animation for it is really, really nice. Not to mention that I kept accidentally, I say accidentally because I would heal at the time that that countdown was going on, and then it would take away the countdown. I didn't realize that was how you got rid of the mechanic. I did it on accident, but I did get lucky enough to figure that out. So once I did it the first time, I was like, oh, does it actually clear it? And then I realized, yeah, that is a great way to do that. But as you can see, I'm not even working on the green lantern on the side there. I keep spawning in the tank for 10 points. That does absolutely nothing because it is not strong against that type. So look, there's a lot of downsides, a lot of things to learn, but I do get it to the second phase, and we have about a minute left at this point. I'd say all in all, not too shabby, but it does spawn another lantern, and I believe this one you have to use damage type on it to activate it, and those are going to help you a lot when it comes to nullifying the boss a little bit. But I will say for the first run that is actually pretty decent. Got him down to about 100k health left. The next time I do it, I do clear it, and I'll show that a little bit later on. I don't want to show the full thing, but I'll show you a little bit of what I did later on. But as you can see here, I am actually upgrading my equipment to tier 2. I did unlock enough to be able to start working on some of them. It gives me a good amount of an attack increase for Hina, so it's going to be a little bit better, a little bit smoother going forward, and I'm going to have to do a lot of farming to get to that point. So as you can see, I swept it 49 times to see what I could get out of it, and I ran a few more in the same direction just to use a lot of the energy I had, because while I'm over the cap, that is a good thing when I'm farming a lot during a day, but if I don't have extra energy to get, then we have a bit of a harder time sustaining that potential growth of energy. So anytime you're over the cap, you're not going to be gaining, you're going to be wasting. So as a free-to-play player, you have to make sure that you use your energy as wisely as possible. But I do a 10 pull, my second one, on the new banners, and I do like the fact that whichever one you decide to pull on, the pity or the counter for the recruitment goes to both of them. So if you are pulling one, you decide later on you want to pull the other one, then you're going to have the option to switch with no repercussions, at least as far as I can tell. We are now at the new event, and this is the very first stage. I'll just show you this one real quick, and then I'll show you the last one of the main story of it. I'm not going to go over the story itself, Maybe in another video I can talk more about how these stories are set up or how they go, but for the moment I'm going to show you what the actual event store looks like. And I apologize if there's noise in the background. My cats are going crazy. It's about time for them to eat. But we do some exchange and get some decent rewards. I do like that there are a lot of options for this one. It seems to be a little bit more pulls that you have to do to get some of the Eligma points towards one of the specific units, the one that is in the store there. But overall, that's fine. If I have plenty of time to farm and I have plenty of time to get all the rewards, then I'm good for that. Now, if I can't do that as a free-to-play player, that's going to be a little sad. We'll figure out, because I am actually on vacation at this point, so I'm going to have a lot more time to be able to devote to trying to figure this stuff out, and we'll see what I am capable of doing by the end of it. But this is the final boss of the regular missions. I nearly lose one of my characters. It gets very, very close to going down, but I do complete it, and luckily we get the 3-star rating on basically all the missions. I think I might have had to go back and do one of them in specifics based on damage. Yeah, number 9 is the one that I had to go back and do. But I unlocked the next part, the quest part, which is I guess where you start to be able to farm multiple and sweep it so that you can get more of the rewards out of it. It's also good to mention that the characters that are used in the event that are part of the story also give you extra rewards, like extra tickets that you can use in the shop for spending. So it's a good idea, if you have those units, to be able to use them to get those extras so that you have more options to spend by the end of it compared to just farming regular. Okay, so we're back on the raid boss, and this is just the second half of it. I skipped the first half to save a little bit of time for this video, but as you can see, I actually have activated the top lantern a little bit and activated the bottom lantern as well. You may not see them actually do their effects during this time, I'm not sure, but either way, we do take out the boss fairly quickly at that point. I do have a good lineup for that. Once again, shout out to Ken for helping me figure out exactly what I needed to do when it comes to changing these. Now, this is the hard mode. I did try this. I don't have the most optimal squad for it at the moment. I did get it nearly down halfway, which is pretty good for a first attempt, especially because I am very low level compared to what I actually need. So we will go and try to finish that by next week. Hopefully I can. But as you can see, I clicked the enemy tab there and I saw what was coming, mainly red units and one yellow unit, so I can mainly focus on doing all red except for maybe 1 or 2 yellow here and there, just for a little extra added damage or support based on what they do. But I'm going to go ahead and let this stage play out, and I will rejoin with you in just a moment. Alright, so we have completed 3 stars on all of Chapter 3. I get the rewards for it, the 200 gems, which is going to be a nice addition to working up to get a little bit more recruits. Not to mention, we're almost finished with Chapter 4 at this point. I did not beat the final stage because it was a bit harder than what I was capable of clearing at the moment, and there is another one that I only 2-starred that I'm going to have to go back and do. But for the most part, I'm doing decently well as far as progression. I'm trying to sweep this stage every chance that I get because this character is the one that I'm trying to unlock currently. It's going to help me a lot later on. And honestly, the hard mode stages really aren't that bad. They're a little tougher than the regular, obviously, but so far I, for the most part, 3-star all of them as I'm doing them now. So just in the past, it was a little bit more rough than it used to be, but as you can see, you can actually refill the energy. You get about 120 for 30 of the gems, which I do not think is worth whatsoever unless you're whaling in this game and you want to get as far as you can. Then there's that option, but as a free-to-play, try not to touch it. That's all I can say. But going forward, I have level 28 as my sensei level, so all of my characters that I use are going to be level 28, they're going to have some decent gear, and I have Hina at 60 out of 100 Ligma, so getting pretty close to taking her to 4-star, to be my first 4-star character. Happy to say my favorite character going up first, because she also does a lot of damage. The character design she has is insane as well, I really love it. But Nanami is another great option that I use for the yellow maps. Saya is actually really good for the AoE damage over time. She takes really hard damage, so very useful when you can get bosses or maybe the raid bosses in one spot. It's just soaking up damage. But Azusa, I guess is how you say it, is also a really nice single target damage dealer that I use for red teams. Hifumi Swimsuit is the tank that I use, takes out squads in yellows really quickly. Chise, I really don't have much options for her yet because I haven't ran into any special armor yet, but she will get uses later on. Fuka is my main healer. Mitsuki I use a little bit. She has a nice damage dealing kit, so I use her a bit. Akane is one of those ones I use just for a little extra damage. I don't have her fully 3-starred, so she's missing some of her skills. Yuka I use as a tank for the red squad, and Serena is my 2-cost healer that helps quite a lot in the healing because she heals every 35 seconds one specific ally, and then she has that 2-point heal that actually goes and heals whichever one you choose. So a very good option for quick healing. And Tsubaki is my yellow guard. Probably not the best to use currently, but she is pretty decent. So she does tank just enough for me to be able to deal with everything. Not to mention that her basic skill also has a heal at least once every battle when she gets down to like 30%, I think, HP. So she'll go up quite a bit. So if you have a early stage heal from her, and then you can save the other heal for her later on if she gets low, it's a good option for keeping everybody alive because she can tank quite a bit. But as you can see, I have a decent sized roster. There's a lot that I still have to get, a lot I have to work on that I will in the future here. But that's basically all I really need to talk about, so I'm going to wrap up this video showing you the Hina background that I got at Relationship 10. So you see a regular and the other one. A bit risque for sure, but it does have some really good music with it, and it's very well animated. But anyway guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.